Welcome back, everybody, to the Legends of Sport podcast. I'm Andy Bernstein, your host, and really happy to bring another in the series of legendary sports photographers to you. This gentleman I've known practically my whole career. He is the godfather, the guru, the top dog of NHL photography, Bruce Bennett. So happy to have Bruce on the show today to share his experience going back to 1974 is when he started shooting NHL hockey. Bruce at one time was the team photographer for the New York Islanders, the New Jersey Devils, the Philadelphia Flyers, and the New York Rangers. He's been to 39 Stanley Cup finals, about to, hopefully, God willing, shoot his 40th Cup final this year. He's done over 5,000 NHL hockey games, 390 or 400 or so international games, 4 Olympics. I mean, this guy's accolades and his history are just mind-blowing to me. And he's still doing it. He still has unlimited energy, loves what he does. And I just love this guy. I love talking to him and picking his brain about hockey. He has produced so many iconic images over his career. And if you're a hockey fan, I know you've seen them. A compilation of his best images are in the book published by the Hockey News. It's called Hockey's Greatest Photos, the Bruce Bennett Collection. We talk about that in the podcast. We talk about how Bruce started, the evolution of the game, how he kind of went corporate when he was taken in-house by Getty Images, and how he sees the game changing over the years and what his plans are for the future. So super happy to have Bruce Bennett on the show. I hope you guys enjoy it. And as always, I'll see you on the backside. Welcome, the great Bruce Bennett, to the Legends of Sport podcast. Man, it's so great to have you, Bruce. Where are you right now, my friend? What am I looking at behind you?
I am in my turret on Long Island.
You have a turret? Where you live in a castle over there, or what's going on?
Well, I really didn't want to boast the castle thing, you know.
Right.
I don't have an alarm system in place yet, but a little carve out when we did a little construction on the house. So I kind of look down at the den, and if I look in the distance, I can see the pool in the backyard that I rarely go in, but I like looking at it out there.
Right.
A little privacy up here, surrounded by all my computers and fun toys and things.
I love it. I love it. Well, me too. I have an office that's about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from my house. So I'm able to sneak out into my secret lair, like Dr. Evil used to call it. It's my lair.
Yeah.
So Bruce,
my kids. Oh,
no, I didn't know you were a Brooklyn guy. Maybe we talked about it, but maybe we didn't. But where did you go to high school?
Oh, I was a Long Islander. Born in Brooklyn, but lived out on Long Island for the first couple of years of my life. Lived in Uniondale, and then family moved out to Levittown. And then I moved on from there a few places, but always been a Long Island guy, but born in Brooklyn.
Yeah. So was your family Dodger fans, I would assume, growing up, right? Or not?
I don't know. All I know is they were from the Flatbush area.
Yeah.
I don't think my family were very big baseball fans at all.
Yeah, that's where I grew up, Flatbush. My dad taught at Brooklyn College.
Okay.
And we've probably talked about this, but I was growing up a lifelong Ranger fan growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was intrigued that you basically started in 74 shooting, correct?
Correct.
So I was junior in high school, just about to kind of go out into the world and figure it out. But I was still going to Ranger games with my dad in 74 and 75. So
Wow.
I probably saw you down there, sitting there doing your thing in the old days.
Yeah, I didn't stand out as much. The hair was black back then, so I kind of blended into the crowd now.
Yeah.
Now it's pretty easy. Someone will say, "Hey, I saw Q-Tip front row, upper right in the screen."
Yeah.
They play the Where's Waldo thing, and with the hair, it's really easy to be spotted.
Yeah. Well, where did your hockey Jones come from? Where, why hockey? Why did you gravitate to hockey?
Played it as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I'd watch the Rangers back then. Of course, no Islanders, so
Right.
watch some Ranger games on WOR TV, Channel 9 in New York. And My mother actually, going way back, my mother had taken me to a New York Rovers game at Madison Square Garden.
Mm.
So that was a minor league team of some sort back then, maybe East Coast Hockey League. I'm not even sure. I really never went back to look at it. And back then, what I remember most was the place was surrounded by fencing, no glass, just fence.
Wow, that's
And
going way back.
somewhere,
Yeah,
oh yeah, very early days. I'm sure that was a lot of fun to shoot through too.
yeah.
Um, but at some point during that game, guys went smashing face first into the fencing, and
Yeah.
all hell broke loose, fights and blood and all kind of stuff. And I realized, hey, I really like this sport. So that was the early days.
Yeah. And
And then just
where were
mhm,
the Rovers game? Where did they play? At the Garden?
Madison Square Garden,
The old
yeah.
Garden,
The
right?
old Garden,
Right.
50th and 8th Avenue, something like that.
Right, right. So I got something to show you. I'm glad you brought up the old Garden. So my dad and I, my family had season tickets going back to I think the late 40s, early 50s to the Rangers. And my dad and I went to the last event, which happened to be a Ranger game at the old Garden, right?
I was there.
You were there. Okay, so
Yes.
right? So people don't believe this story, right?
Hmm.
But they and it's true. People the fans were encouraged to take whatever they could take, right?
I know.
You
It's
remember?
insane.
So like halfway through the third period, I mean, I'm telling you stuff that but the fans and the listeners out there don't believe it. Halfway through the third period, you start hearing jackhammering and crowbarring,
I
right?
remember it clear as day.
Yeah,
Like people are breaking seats, and
right.
guys came prepared with screwdrivers and wrenches. And
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
was a kid. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And that people, what I remember? This was great.
yeah,
Came out. I was happy to have a slat, which I still have, one slat from the seat,
right.
because there
Yeah.
were four of us, and one was a big bully kid. So
Mm-hmm.
he was able to break the chairs by stepping on it and
Yeah.
banging it. We get out to the street, and guys are walking past with 4 chairs in a row on their shoulders. They're
Right.
walking down the block with it.
Yeah, yeah. Urinals, guys went out with urinals. I saw people chopping up the blue line. It's a
Oh,
crazy.
jeez.
But you talk about a seat. Look what I got. Look at this.
Oh,
This
isn't that
is a
something?
slat from the seat. My dad actually wrote this.
Yeah.
I've had it. This was where it was, section
Hmm.
315, row B. So he brought his toolbox, and just like everybody else, we got out. We had a really cool, for a long time, I don't know what happened to it. We had this great exit sign, one of those old-fashioned ones that we kept in the garage and stuff. So that's probably where our paths
Funny.
crossed the first time. We didn't even
That
know.
was it. Yeah, I was all the way up in the crummy seats, and
Yeah, yeah,
I mean that was 68, I believe.
yeah. 68, February
68.
11th, 1968.
Okay, so I was 13 years old. Yeah, and the big
Yeah,
tough guy was 15, and at least we had him to be able to break up seats for my brother and myself, because
yeah,
and we had scoped out. I remember also we scoped out some signs. Oh, by the end of the game, we're going to get these. By the
yeah.
time we got back to him, guys had already taken all the signs off the walls. And I mean, think about doing that these days, where they resell every
Yeah,
item from our
right.
sports arenas. Never be able to do that again.
It's funny you say that, because when they tore down the LA Sports Arena, which was one of my favorite places to shoot basketball, it was probably Bruce Springsteen's one of his top arenas that he loved to play in. He called it the dump that jumps. They put a lot of stuff out to auction, and they had this iconic clock that I would always shoot on the other side and look at this clock, and just an amazing, wonderful clock, and it went for, I don't know, $20,000 or something. But I would have loved to have had that thing.
Yeah, I made a play when the Islanders first moved out of Nassau Coliseum. I kind of felt my way through everybody I knew there. I wanted one of the hockey nets,
Yeah. Oh, that would have been
and
amazing.
that
Yeah.
never panned out, and they ended up back there anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll get to that in a minute, because I wanted to just think. I was thinking about all the paths, all the times our paths have crossed. So I didn't know about this one, right? And,
Yeah.
and I had Yvonne Cornway on the podcast the other day,
Hmm.
and he was talking about what was it, the '76 Stanley Cup, Montreal and Philly, which was your first Stanley Cup, right?
Yeah.
Told a story that, like, the future of the NHL depended on the Canadians beating the hated bullies, because they
Mm-hmm.
changed the game so much and became, bugs.
Right.
So he was great. You remember shooting him, Cornway, back in the day?
It's great. I mean, most of those Montreal Canadiens would fly up and down the ice. You
Yeah.
know, the Flying Frenchman and Cornway and Jacques Lemaire,
Hmm. Hmm.
even Henri Richard.
Yeah.
Didn't move as fast as the other guys, but team was such a powerhouse and so much fun to photograph and so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
Even before the days when I started shooting, they were just a powerhouse.
Yeah, my dad used to always when we used to go to the Garden and watch Montreal play. Of course, we always had to wear suits to go to the games
Yeah,
back in the day,
yeah.
and he always loved watching the Canadians because they played different. And he said, "Just watch that Cornway. Look how fast he is. Look at those
Hmm.
crisp passes." And the guy
Yeah,
was what 5'7" or
yeah.
something.
Small.
Yeah, he told me a story about how he got in a fight. One of like the two fights in his whole career was with Glenn Sather, who happens to be a good friend of ours. My dad befriended him when he was with the Rangers. So I got to talk
Hmm.
to Glenn about it. I can imagine what that fight was like.
Yeah, yeah. It's always interesting. You know, when you look back at the older days where you'd have goons going after the skilled players,
Yeah.
at least that's gone from the NHL now, and it's basically come back with all the rules they've enacted through the years.
Hmm.
They let the skilled players play, and they
Yeah.
let the skilled players skate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I want to talk about this one particularly skilled player that I think we all know. Let's talk about Wayne Gretzky, because tell me, when was the first time you saw him play and were able to photograph him? Do you remember?
Oh yes, 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 yes. In Hartford, um, one of the last year of the World Hockey Association,
Mm.
and actually trying to think now whether that was in Hartford or when or that was a game that was moved to Springfield, Massachusetts,
Yeah.
when the Hartford Arena imploded.
Right. I
In
remember.
any case, last year World Hockey Association,
Hmm.
scrawny kid.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know, it was a different age back then, and it was magic. It was the
Yeah.
magic of the puck.
But could you foresee like how this guy would seriously turn the entire hockey world on its head and set all those records? And because I don't think anybody foresaw that. I mean, they saw great talent, but like you said, a
Hmm.
scrawny kid, wasn't the greatest skater of all time, but just
Yeah.
genius with the puck.
Even when you take a guy like that and you surround him with like Dave Semenko and the protectors,
Hmm.
he's still vulnerable.
Hmm.
Shift by shift, he's still vulnerable to being hit and checked and slowed down.
Yeah.
But he's a guy who always had such a will to succeed, um, that he would brush that stuff off.
Yeah, he was amazing. And then, of course, he always had his protectors around, Marty McSorley being
Of
probably the
course.
primary guy, right?
Yeah.
I once saw McSorley protect Gretzky when they were both in LA. McSorley actually fought three guys at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen this a year, but he had one guy pinned with his
Hmm.
forearm against against the boards. He had another guy sort of underneath his arm like this, and he's punching the other guy.
Yeah.
It's
If
unbelievable.
anybody was capable of it, Marty McSorley was capable of that.
So, Bruce, tell me, you sent me a bunch of pictures that were your favorites, right? And again, I'll try to pull them up, but who the hell
That's
knows?
it. I got the sheet here,
You,
so
you know that
is
one
that
of the young Gretzky,
oh yes,
black
yes.
and white, the cover of your book.
Yeah.
Tell us the story about that picture.
Yeah. I mean, that was that last game in the WHA.
Hmm.
Um, Went into the locker room, and that's the kind of shot you're hoping for. You're hoping he's not hiding in a back room,
Hmm.
or um, other players are in the way.
Yeah.
And you just look at that, and you look at not only the equipment that looks like stuff I used to wear in my high school days, the crummy shoulder pads, and you can just see how young he is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, lucky enough, and back in those days, a lot of what I shot was black and white. These days you shoot all digital, and you can convert it black and white if you want to get a certain feel to it.
Right.
But yeah, it's an image that through the years has always been one of my favorites, and they change every year. Like every year, somebody will say, "What are your favorites?" And there's always a little mix there. But this
Yeah.
one has made the list every year.
Yeah, so it's interesting that that's the picture that I guess you chose and the Hockey News chose to put on the cover of your book, right? Hockey's Greatest Photos, the Bruce Bennett collection.
Yeah.
Um, was that a no-brainer? I mean, you just had to have that picture on the cover. I mean, why not Gretzky celebrating or holding the cup or something?
Yeah, the publishers of the book, the Hockey News, I had such a long-standing relationship with them, 40 years of working together,
Mhm.
and they trusted my judgment on it. It's kind of odd, actually, when you think about it. You're talking about a book of 250 photos of my favorite hockey photos, and the picture I choose is one where there's a guy standing in a locker room. And obviously, it's Gretzky, and that's great.
Mhm.
But there are so many, action photos in there that I really like and would have told the story of hockey. But
Yeah.
to me, I don't know, that just seemed like one of my favorites and was a little bit out of the ordinary to have it on the cover. And that's probably why I went with it.
You know, you and I are cut from the same cloth in many ways, but I feel the same way. My behind the scenes stuff, the access, all that, it just, it doesn't take over the significance of action and moments and cups, Stanley Cups or NBA championships. But I don't know, maybe it just means a little more because of what went into it, and plus the trust, because you've had to build up trust, just like I have, um, with organizations, with coaches, and I think it's fair to say that hockey is a little bit easier in terms of access, but they're kind of set in their ways a little bit more too. And a photographer just showing up in the locker room, a lot of these old coaches don't, they don't dig that stuff.
Mhm. Yeah.
So how did that start with you? What was your first experience with a coach or a GM or somebody when, to let you in the locker room to do your thing?
Yeah. Well, um, in the earlier days when I started, it was okay to just walk in the locker room with cameras, and then one by one, teams would restrict your access, and then eventually the NHL themselves restricted access to the locker room. So it's just the team photographers or their own photographers who would go in and shoot.
Mhm.
But I remember a couple of incidences in the early days going in and starting with a press conference with a coach. You start, maybe you shoot some of that, and then you go on and get a couple of pictures in the locker room. Um, but there was a coach, Dan Maloney, um, Toronto, and I went in and I had no idea that photographers weren't permitted into the press conference, that
Mhm.
he was sitting at his desk, real old style image, sitting back at his desk, and there were 5 6 guys around.
Uh-huh.
And I guess he noticed me there and really didn't care that much, and it wasn't a particularly good game for them. And he's explaining everything, and I hit the shutter once, and there was a slight pause, and then when I hit it the second time, he just like looked at the guys and said, "Excuse me for a minute," and then he got up and came for me.
Oh,
and,
geez.
I was right out the door. I was just like, zoom.
Like a hockey fight with a photographer,
Yeah,
really?
it was like, feet don't fail me now. Boom, right out the door. It was like,
Oh my
I didn't even
God.
know, like, did I do something wrong? I don't know. And then the guy at the door says, the security guy goes, "How did you get in there with a camera?" And I'm like, "I walked right past you, dude. You could have like given me a tip that I wasn't permitted there."
Right. But
Um,
but that didn't scare you off, obviously, because you ventured into many, many more locker rooms after that.
oh, well, I never went to another Dan Maloney press conference after that. You
Right.
know, I'm
Right.
smarter than that.
Yeah.
But there were other times. I mean, I started as the Islanders photographer in '81,
Mm.
and that gave me more access
Yeah.
to the players behind the scenes. Occasionally, on a charter flight. Um, and there were a couple of times in there where it got dicey when you'd go into the locker room and um, Billy Smith would be in there way early, and
Yeah.
Smith would be laid out at his locker, just staring off into the distance.
Hmm.
And the guys just pretty much, would come up to me and warn me and go, "Don't get too close. Just
Yeah,
keep your distance."
goalies are pretty nuts to begin with.
Yeah.
Jonathan Quick, who's a great guy, and I went to the same college as him. Same thing. If I get like within 8 feet of this guy, he just is ready to go. So,
Yeah.
do you see this picture? This nice
Yes.
one? So,
Got it.
so this, I mean, to be the Islanders photographer during those days, man, what an experience that must have been, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
For me, especially because I'm a Long Islander.
Yeah, yeah.
So you learn, as a sports photographer, one of the things you need um, to make sure you do is separate your personal emotions
Mhm,
from the scene.
mhm.
You cannot be successful in this business if you're rooting for one team or another team, or for one player against another
Yeah,
player.
absolutely.
Um, and so tamping down my own feelings by that point in my career, I was 8 years in, and I had prided myself on, and still pride myself on, not being friends with athletes,
Mhm,
keeping my distance from the players,
mhm.
and keeping my own emotions out of shoots. And that was something that that was a big moment, because I knew it was not only big for the Islanders, but it was big for the Long Island region,
Mhm.
which was so important to me.
Yeah, yeah, incredible. I mean, I had sort of the same experience, maybe in a little bit different way, but going back to MSG when the Kings were in the Cup final in 2014. You and I shot 2 Cup finals together. I mean, you've done like a gazillion of them, but we only did 2 together, which was 12 and 14 with the Kings. And I grew up in the Garden, and here I show up in a Kings jacket, and I don't know if you know this story. So, our friends at NHLI had to carve out shooting positions, which I'm sure you were part of that. And the visiting team photographer, which was me, it was given this crazy position, like in an aisle, sort of behind the net, and a little bit to the side. And needless to say, the season ticket holders right next to me were not used to having anybody sitting in
Hmm.
front of them, right? Um, and kind of ruining their line of sight into the corner. And B, wearing like the visiting team stuff.
Oh.
and one guy wanted to get into it with me, and I said to him, "Sir, see, I got to interrupt you." I said, "You see up there, those seats used to be green, and it used to be called Section 321. It's called something else now." I said, "That's where I grew up. Row 2, seats 1 through 4. That's where me and my dad and my uncle. That's like." And he looked at me, he goes, "Ranger fan?" I said, "Don't tell anybody."
Yeah.
And then by the end of the third period, like right before the game ended, he gives me his card. He goes, "Give me a call. Come over for dinner sometime."
Yeah.
It's
Geez.
hilarious.
I remember in the early days going out to Edmonton with the Islanders for one of their cup years, and
Yeah.
I ended up sharing an aisle with a great Johnny Iacono from
Uh,
Sports Illustrated. And
mhm.
he's a Long Islander, same as me,
Yeah.
and a big goofball, same as me. And he's sitting there and he looks over to me and he says in a really loud voice, "So how's it going? You working for the Islanders? Everything good?" I'm like, "Shut the hell up, dude,"
Yeah,
right?
Johnny.
And all of a sudden people are chiming in. "Yeah, this is the guy he's the Islander team guy."
Oh,
And hockey fans in Canada, they're hockey fans.
mhm.
So nobody really, they gave me a good ribbing, but
Yeah, yeah.
it was safe.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I shot next to Johnny a few times at boxing matches, ringside, and he had the sharpest elbows of any person I've ever met. And he warned me. He goes, and I was a kid then. He says, "Look, kid." He goes, "This is my space," and he had his space, and then he had like half of my space. He goes, "Don't even think about coming into my space." Yeah, but old school, but man, one of the greats, right, Johnny?
Yeah, absolutely, and a
Yeah.
character.
Yeah. So, Bruce, how have you seen the game change? I mean, if anybody's been around and seen as many games as you, I don't know how many people have seen as many games as you personally, but you've seen the game change immensely over the years, right? And I don't know
Yeah.
for the good, for the bad, but whatever. I mean, the game obviously has changed because it's in cities like Nashville and places that you never would thought in a million years you'd have hockey. Um, so what's your feeling on the style of play, the expansion stuff, Vegas? I mean, who thought you'd have
Yeah.
hockey in Vegas, for
Oh
God's
my
sake?
goodness. What look, some of the best arenas to go see a game now are in the South.
Yeah,
One of my favorites is Nashville.
really?
That crowd is wild. They get up for the game. They're ardent fans.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing Las Vegas come in, what a great place! What a great presentation! It's got all the Vegas gloss and glitter, but the fans know their sport and they know their team and they love their team.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting. Do you remember when Atlanta came into the league, the Atlanta Flames?
yeah, yeah,
So
that was.
my
Mhm.
mom was living in Atlanta. She got remarried, and I went down there, and we went to a game. I'm sure you shot games in the old Omni, right?
Yeah,
And they didn't know hockey from anything over there, right? So every single whistle, they would explain, like, that's icing. The puck has gone over two lines, and then we'll come back to the other side, or it's
yeah.
like ridiculous. And they had to explain all the penalty calls and all this stuff. It
Hmm.
just didn't really make sense to me, but it was a
Yeah.
weird vibe, especially coming from an original six team where people just knew hockey inside and out.
Yeah, a lot of the times when these teams start off, the fans just want to see fights.
Yeah, true.
And in the early days, they'd get a lot of fights.
Yeah.
The NHL has pre- slowly gotten past that to be, as I said earlier, it's more
Yeah.
about the skill
Hmm.
and letting the skilled players perform.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
from the early days to now, I mean, the big differences for me are it's really the speed of the sport.
Hmm.
I mean, all you got to do is go to YouTube and watch some of the early days, and my goodness, a lot of those teams look like they're skating in sand.
Yeah. Oh, that's one of my dad's oldest expressions. He used to say that about Pete Stemkowski.
Yeah,
That damn Stemkowski looks like he's skating in sand. He's just
yeah.
doing figure eights out there.
There's a whole different thing, and back then, one of the players described it to me. I mean, those guys like Stemkowski and Ted Irvin, and basically the whole league.
Yeah.
Come training camp time, those guys would show up and start working out.
Right.
Now the young kids, they're working out all summer. They show up at training camp ready to compete, ready to play.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they're in such better physical shape than the players were in the earlier days.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
think you find too many players smoking. In the old days, you'd walk past the locker room and there'd be a few guys out in the hallway between periods smoking.
Yeah, they're a different breed, man. Hockey players. It's amazing. Can you? And it's really a crazy question, but can you name your top five players to shoot? Interpersonally or knowing them or whatever, but leaving that out of it. But exciting player, like when you go into a game with X player playing in that game, like that, your juices are flowing a little bit more.
Oh, let's see. That's a tough one, man.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
Gretzky, of course, is top of got to be
Yeah,
top of the list.
look, I mean, I guess I'm better off thinking of the earlier days,
Yeah.
as early onset of memory issues. But look, Bobby Orr, the few games that I shot him,
Yeah.
I mean, just the fluid skating style and the power on ice. I used to
Mhm.
love photographing games with him and Dennis Potvin as well. He's really the one that power on ice is what you would think of. Strong physical defenseman who controlled the play. Um, Martin Brodeur in nets. I would watch him any day of the week. I mean, it was always a surprise.
Yeah.
And of course, was friendly with his father, Denny, who was hockey photographer, and worked for the Montreal Canadiens for a number of years.
Mhm.
Current players, yeah, you put me on the spot.
Yeah. I mean, what about this Austin Matthews guy? I only saw him play once, but he was impressive, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know what? He gets better every time I see him. I think he
Yeah.
gets better.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting. Some of the younger guys, like Dylan Larkin in Detroit, is a guy I love watching,
Mm.
and it's interesting for me because I don't see them every day. But when you see him, you go, "Well, this guy's improved. This guy's taken another step forward. This
Yeah.
guy's gotten past that first or second year jitters
Yeah.
and is now more of a physical presence or can brush off physical play." Um, and from ice level, where I always shoot, I hate shooting from upstairs.
Mhm.
I like the ice level because you can see the player's eyes
Mm.
and you can see if they're motivated. You can see if they're into the game.
Mhm.
You can see if they're skating past the pane of glass next to you and, fixing their jersey to make sure they look good, that kind of thing.
Right.
Um, and
Yeah.
you see guys like Dylan Larkin, I really think of because
Yeah.
you can see he's in there every shift.
Mhm.
Guys like that um, who, use their brains and use their newer physical attributes,
Mhm.
their strength to survive, in a pretty grueling sport. Got to
Yeah.
admire that.
Yeah, I mean this Ovechkin guy is kind of like a throwback in a way. I
Yeah.
mean, the way he's built, first of all, but I mean his skill is amazing.
Mhm.
Seems to be a great leader, from what the games I've seen in the cup and all that. But have you had any encounters with him? Any dealings with him one on one?
No, there aren't too many players that I really do one-on-one stuff with, but what I like best about Ovechkin is he's a little bit predictable. So you kind of know, you got to kind of have a rough idea where he's going to shoot from.
Hmm.
Um, but also his celebrations are joyous.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
right.
you want a guy going crazy when he scores a goal.
Yeah,
Uh, the worst thing is a lot of these guys, they'll score the goal, and the first thing they do is they come around the net and they take the mouthpiece out. So your first few frames are,
yeah,
this,
right.
and then by the time they do this, they've already passed you and they're up towards center ice.
Yeah, yeah.
But Ovechkin is his celebrations are Stanley Cup quality.
Yeah, for sure. So, Bruce, at one time, and tell me how many years this was. You were the team photographer for four teams in
Yeah,
the area, right? The
yeah,
Islanders, the Devils, the Flyers, and the Rangers.
yeah.
How the hell did you do that? What was the logistics? Were you like living in a van somewhere or something? What
Just
was the
like the
story?
traveling Wilburys, I'm up
Right.
and down the
Yeah.
turnpike. Had a staff at that point. During those years, I had about 10 guys working for me. Um, Usually, what I say now is when Islanders, Rangers, Devils, Flyers, when all those teams are home or a few of them are, closest team wins. So if it's Islanders, I'll be there. If it's Rangers, I'll be there. Devils is 3, Flyers lose out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back in those days, I was looking for the better matchup.
Right.
So usually for me, it was if a Western team was coming in who I wouldn't see that often,
Mhm.
that's where I would go. And with an assistant or two, in tow, usually two of us in my organization would cover each game. It was a little bit longer distance, maybe Hartford Whalers, for instance, or Boston Bruins. Two of us would go, one drive one way, one drive the other way, and it's a lot of games. I'd hit 140-ish games a season, uh, which uh,
Mm. Yeah.
which is a lot.
That is a lot. So, am I up to date when I say 37 Stanley Cups? It seems like you probably maybe a few more than that, right?
39 now.
Okay, 39.
I,
That's
I was prepared.
right. Yeah,
39.
39. So so would this year be, God willing, they have a Stanley Cup, would be 40?
This would be 40. Yeah, they're going to bring a cake out onto the ice for me and hit me in the face with it, I think.
Well, I hope I get to see that, and whoever is going around the ice with the cup, that would be amazing. But it's incredible. I mean, I'm looking at my notes, 4 Olympics that you've done, 390 international games. I mean,
Yeah.
that just
Yeah.
blows my mind. 390 games.
Listen, I'm just trying to stay out of the house.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, you know?
I love it. So I need to talk to you about the Winter Classic, because when the NHL, in all their wisdom, decided, let's play hockey outside in the middle of the winter somewhere. Um, Sounds good on paper, but for those of us who actually have to be there, and I have to preface that to say I've only shot one of those, and it happened to be at Dodger Stadium, and it was like 70 degrees out.
Yeah,
But
that's not an outdoor game, dude.
exactly. So when you go to, like, Michigan, or you're in the middle of Fenway Park or wherever it is, and it's the middle of the winter, man, how do you function? I mean, how do you actually work?
I got the simple answer. When I started with Getty Images 15 years ago, I was given the title Director of Photography, Hockey Imagery.
Mhm.
When they started this Winter Classic bullshit, may I say,
Yeah,
I changed it to Director of Indoor Hockey Photography.
that's
I
my
am not
man. I
built for
love
that
that.
stuff.
You know
You
what?
know,
I'm with you, but I with
yeah.
you, pal. I would look. It's great for the young guys. Let them go out there, get frostbite. But old guys like us, we don't need that.
You know what? I don't, with Getty Images, I mean, we'll send our football guys, we'll send the guys who have what they need.
Mhm.
I've gotten stuck a few years because of proximity. So the game, I did one at Yankee Stadium, one at Citi Field, a couple down in Philadelphia. The last one in Philly, it rained. I mean, it was
Rain.
my friend Andre Ringette from the Ottawa Senators comes up to me at the end of the game, and he puts his arm around me, and he says something along the lines are, "I was watching you. You were so miserable. I felt so bad for you."
Oh,
I,
God.
I could not stay dry. My equipment, I could not stay dry.
Yeah.
I just have no experience in that realm.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's fun for if you're a fan, and from everything I've heard from the players and I've read, it's kind of bringing hockey, basics of hockey, because they all basically grew up playing on a pond somewhere. That's at
Yeah,
least you like to think that.
yeah.
But man, for us working and the TV people, and
Oh,
it's just brutal,
you know,
brutal.
the snow at the few that I shot, the snow I dealt with okay.
Yeah.
The rain was just so miserable.
Yeah.
And you know what, the fans, I mean, look, the shot is you walk into a stadium and oh, there's a hockey rink in a stadium. Okay, we could all go home now
Yeah. We
because
got
that's
over that
finished.
one. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and it's led to some beautiful frames from photographers through all the years. Definitely some beautiful frames.
Yep.
But what I also learned over the years, because I'm on the sales side as well as the content side, is
Hmm?
nobody cares.
Yeah.
Uh, eh, you know
Yeah.
what? The two markets that are there, those two markets care about it.
Mhm.
The fans there care about it. The newspapers staff it themselves from both markets usually,
Yeah.
and the rest of the country has no idea there was an outdoor game.
Yeah. I think you're right. It is a novelty. It is a way to sell sponsorships and tickets and stuff. And
Hmm.
and they can do it. I mean, it's a sport that can be brought outside. You can't do an NBA game outside and have it count for anything. I mean, they've done
Right.
some exhibitions like in tennis stadiums in Palm Springs and stuff, but not an
Mhm.
actual real game.
Yeah.
Um, so Bruce, and everything's going along really great with BBS, Bruce Bennett Studios, right? You got these 4 teams. Then all of a sudden, boom, in 2004, you and Getty come to an agreement, and you got to put a tie on and become like a suit, right? Not really. No, but how did that all come about? What was, I mean, you don't have to share like all the backstory, but why did you make that decision?
Um, you know, uh, there were many things at the same time.
Mhm.
NHL was starting to be like the other leagues. They were starting to stop guys like me, freelancers, from coming in and photographing and selling to a bunch of different markets.
Mhm.
So that was myself and a bunch of the freelance guys were having the same kind of issue. Also, at that point, I was 30 years in, and I had employees. There were a lot of pros to having employees, and obviously a lot of cons, like waking up in the middle of the night and going, "Oh my God, there's $10,000 in payroll due. What am I going to do?"
Yeah.
And the answer is you don't take a paycheck. So there was all that kind of stuff, and the allure the allure of working for a company like Getty Images, and at that point also there was Wire Image, and
Mhm.
I talked to both companies. Both were interested in making a deal, but um, Getty Images eventually bought Wire Image, so I would ended up there anyway.
Mhm.
Loved a bunch of the people who worked there through
Yeah.
the years. Carmen Romanelli, who obviously and Peter Orlowski, and um, the CEO was great. I mean, I just loved everything about the place.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
in fact, I remember after we did the transaction, Peter, I went into the city, and we used to fight for clients. I mean, Getty against BBS. I mean, we'd undercut each other left and right. And Peter Orlowski greeted me at the door. He put his arm around me in his gregarious way, and he says, he walks me through. He says, "How do you feel?" And I go, "I feel like I should be looking for some shit to steal." It's like,
They had to chain down the staplers and stuff, right?
yeah, it was really bizarre, but
That's fun.
and of course I had a problem. You go to a corporate environment. I used to pull the strings on all the deals.
Right.
Now I had people to answer to, and I kind of enjoyed, except for a couple of times, I kind of enjoyed navigating that maze of getting to yes,
Mm.
you
Mhm.
know, getting the answer and going, "Look, I know this is smart business. This is what we need to do.
Mhm.
This is how we're going to be successful," and getting people to look at it from your point of view and get intelligent feedback from other people there to say, well, how about if we twist it this way? And you go, oh man, that's perfect. You know,
Yeah.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, our great friend Carmen Romanelli, who I worked with for years at NBA Photos, and now, of course, is VP of everything, global licensing at Getty, had a great quote. We reached out to him about you, okay, and it's good.
Can you say it?
It's a good one. He said,
Okay.
"quote I've worked closely with Bruce for many years. He's the ultimate professional. I wish I had someone like Bruce for every sport there is." Right, which coming from Carmen is pretty high praise.
That's like the sweetest thing he's ever said to me.
He also said you have to put $20 in an envelope and send it to me. That's another story.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah, so Carmen brought up one of your fortes. You have many fortes as being literally the dean, the godfather of hockey photography. But one of your fortes is the net cam, which you really perfected. I mean, had been done before. You did, just like I did the glass cam and stuff at basketball. But your net cam stuff, and hopefully you can see that. Can you see that picture?
No, but I can guess it's one of the two net cams I sent you.
Well, it's definitely the one. That's weird.
With the giant puck.
Yeah. Now, dude, this is like the sickest hockey picture I think I've ever seen in my life. The puck is going in the net, and you can literally read the New Jersey insignia on the puck, right? And people don't realize what it takes to actually make this technology happen, right? You have a housing has to be approved by the NHL. I'm sure you are very much deeply involved in that. That has to be set up way before the game. You have to have the approval of the GMs, the coaches, the goalies, the referees, right? Everybody. Yeah. And then you got to hope the damn thing works when you need it, right?
So, and there are so many ways to screw up net. That's my favorite net cam.
See, that's you literally setting up the net cam.
Yeah.
And you got a CF card in your mouth.
They taste good.
Right. But this is, people see the photos and that's cool. And then they move on. But nobody really gets what's involved in the preparation. And I always talk about, and you'll echo with this, I know, it's all about the preparation. It's all about really anticipating the action, of course, but knowing that your equipment is dependable and testing things 25 times, make sure it works. And of course, there's an element of luck, but as our good friend Walter Yost says, luck favors the most prepared. So
yeah, I got to write. Hold on, I'm going to tweet that out.
You have to tweet that.
Yes. Yeah. You know, a lot of it is experience. I mean, I used to call myself the netcam screw up, and then when I work closely with other guys who are big in netcam, I go, "Oh my God, you screw it up as many times as I screw it up. I feel so much better."
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I've seen so many netcam pictures of yours. I mean, I maybe have gotten. This is not an exaggeration. I may have gotten 3 or 4 in my entire career, and I don't do it as often as you do, but consistently. I mean, I don't know how you do it, man. And is your net cam on the opposite goal from where you're shooting? That's
absolutely
ridiculous. That's just
yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
It's you know, you learn, as you go along, you learn different techniques and how to be better at it. Of course, being at 12 to 14 frames a second helps. So, if you think of the early days of doing netcam, I got 36 a period.
Yeah.
And I'd have to go reload the film. A lot of times I'd have a little piece of paper taped to the boards and I'd go put a little hash mark. Okay, you just shot 1, you shot 2, you shot 3.
Yeah. And
now, in a typical period, you'll end up with 300, 350 images maybe. And, it's like Christmas morning, I guess. You get to that digital card and you start looking through and you don't know what you have until you get it back on a computer.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
It's so incredible. I mean, it really is. Harry Howe got that great picture. Remember when the Kings won the cup and he got Quick and the guys celebrating, but from the net cam perspective, which I had never seen a celebration from a net cam like that. That was incredible. I mean, you got this picture from the overhead angle, right?
Well, how did I know you were going to pick this one to show, Mr. Kings fan?
Well, it was such an unbelievable moment. I mean, first of all, this is our second cup in 2014, but who the hell knew this would happen, again against the Rangers. So that was crazy. But I was with you in the catwalk when you set that up, if you remember.
Yes.
And I kind of questioned it. I didn't know if I questioned you out loud, but I'm like, why is he putting that there at an angle like that? And lo and behold, this is the reason why.
Well, so. I mean, the day before the game, I saw the script. The NHL shared that with me.
Right.
So,
yeah, it was Hollywood. So yes.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Great moment. Look, usually what we look for, when we're putting remote cameras around is where will we not have a photographer stationed?
Right.
And sometimes, we've got it covered from 360 degrees around, and you go, okay, you take a shot. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And for that image and the Harry Howe image that you spoke about, those remote cameras, we follow the policy that when that final buzzer goes, every remote in your building goes.
Yeah.
Because you could have a remote in the opposite net, and the goalie comes dashing out with his arms up with the whole arena exploding behind him.
Mm-hmm.
You're busy shooting handheld. You don't really know what's going on in all the other places.
Yeah.
So, that shot, that shot of Lundqvist, I was actually just on the close end in front of the Kings players. I was being blocked from the scene, but I was in the Zamboni corner, I think. I'm pretty certain I was in the Zamboni corner.
Yeah.
And I'm looking up at the scoreboard, and I'm just holding down the button going, geez, I hope.
Yeah. You hope the signal works. You hope that it's getting something. Yeah, of course. We were right next to each other in the Zamboni corner, because if you remember, that's where we're directed to be. As soon as the doors open, a few of us are able to run out, or shuffle out, or whatever you want to call it. And then there's the moments like this, which comes right after that. That's Dave Sanford next to you, the NHL photographer. And that's a crazy scene. I mean, I've only done it twice, but on the NBA side, I know what that's like. And they want us to be very careful here. Don't get in the camera view, blah, 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 all that stuff.
On the opposite side of the upstairs cameras, don't get in the way of the camera guys on the ice.
Right.
And the fact is that handshake, except for certain combos of two players, it is the most worthless shot ever.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you want to be on the ice for the cup presentation and the captain hoisting the cup and then the skate around and all that. I've seen you, man. I'll tell you something. God bless you. You keep up with those guys. I've seen you running after them as the cup is going around the rink. How many more years do you think you got you to do that, Bruce?
Oh, another 45 at least.
At least, right? Because as I'm reading this, 2014, so we're talking 6 years ago, you shot your 5,000 with 3 zeros hockey game. So you got to be up to like, I don't know, 5,500 now?
Yeah, 56-ish. A little over 5,600.
Jesus.
The next goal is 5,000. You can see I have an accounting degree. My next goal is 5,000 NHL games. That would be not preseason, but NHL playoffs and regular season games, and that should be late next season, I think.
Now, have you literally kept count? Like you have it marked off somewhere?
Yeah, I got a number thing, like there are 18 Legends of Sports signs be over your left shoulder. I mean, I got issues. You have issues. I have issues.
Yeah, I got a lot of issues.
But, I just started counting from the early days. It was more a way of keeping track of what teams and where you'd find the images, and then it just progressed from there.
Yeah, unbelievable. You have any idea how many images you've? I mean, I don't want to count the one or two that have been out of focus over your career, but how many have you produced in your career?
It's actually 2,718,312 images. No, I just made that up also.
It's probably pretty damn close, man.
Actually, in 2004, when I sold the company to Getty Images, it was about 2 million images then.
2 million images.
Yeah.
God bless you. Jesus, Bruce, you got to get serious arthritis there, that figure.
Yeah. This one eye has seen a hell of a lot of hockey. This has seen absolutely none.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Are you right-handed or left-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Okay, and you shoot with your left eye, right? That
Yeah.
I do the same thing, and not too many
Is that
photographers do
wrong?
that. No, it's just unusual because of this, your dexterity in your brain, to shoot from your left eye, and you're really right-handed. There's only two
Mhm.
things in life I do lefty: is shoot with my left eye and hold a hockey stick lefty, which is
That's
interesting.
funny. When I shoot pool, just because
Yeah,
I never learned the right way, and it's not often. It's not often. When I
yeah.
shoot pool, I shoot lefty.
Ah,
Because
okay.
nobody ever taught me, like, no, you're a righty, shoot the other
Yeah,
way.
it's weird,
But
right?
I have an exercise for you because this
Yeah.
works really great. One photographer to photographer, so everybody else can just chill for a little bit. So you usually shoot with the left eye open?
Yep.
Okay. So open the other eye. You start with your camera here
Yeah.
and you bring it back to focus from that eye,
Uh-huh.
and you'll smack yourself right in the forehead.
Yeah, I don't need to do the exercises. I've done that many times.
Yeah.
One time I got hit in the eye at a hockey game, by the way. A good photographer friend of ours, which will remain nameless, just wheeled around and hit me with his elbow while I had the camera up, and I didn't have an eye cup, so the metal of the eyepiece just took out my eyebrow and a gush of blood. So I had to shoot in my right eye. The other time was I got hit in the face with a champagne cork in the Bulls locker room
Oh,
by another person who will remain nameless, but a totally innocent thing. I mean, the guy didn't see me coming, and just as he opened the champagne, it hit me right in the left eye.
oh,
And I spent the entire locker room shooting with my right eye, and that was in the film days with manual focus.
manual focus.
Everything out of focus the rest of the night. Thank God I had my buddy Nat Butler there because he got all the
Oh,
great
God.
shots that I didn't. So, well, Bruce, I can't thank you enough, man, for taking this time. And anything you want to plug or anything coming up? I mean, we're all hoping to get back to sports at some point. NHL announced some crazy plan, which I didn't understand. Maybe you did, but some way to
It's a
get
mess.
back. Yeah, but
Yeah, it's a mess, but I'm thinking I'll be shooting 3 games a day for all of August, so that'll boost my numbers significantly. Just when I thought I was going to fall off the precipice here, I
right.
think I'll probably have more games this year than any other time, and
Yeah.
looking forward to the physical and mental challenge of 3 games a day for a bit.
Yeah, well, 3 games a day is a lot, especially in hockey because those are long games, man.
It's Olympic style, which
Yeah,
because we face that in Olympics where you've got a span of 7 days. They play 20 games in the 7 days, and
yeah,
when you survive that, then you know it's all downhill. It's going to be an easy go after that.
yeah. I remember I went to the 2000 Olympics in Sydney. Excuse me, it's called the Summer Olympics, of course, and we, the NBA photographers and USA Basketball, we were responsible for shooting for FIBA, which this is the
Right.
basketball governing body. Um, and we were literally shooting 5 games a day in the first round. I mean, I remember getting to the arena at 8 in the morning and getting back to the hotel at midnight. And
Yeah.
by the third game, you just like toast.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
terrible. Yeah, but
The
hopefully you'll be back on some rink somewhere in some city
That's
that we
right.
don't
Look
know.
for the hair.
Yeah, of course. And I look forward to us crossing paths. I always know when I see you, Bruce, that it's an important event or game, and that we'll have some good laughs. And I have somebody working, side by side with me who's, got more experience than I do, but that I can really kind of feel, a great fraternity with. So thanks for always being so welcoming to me, even back in the early days when we didn't really know each other that much.
Right.
So
Right. Well,
appreciate
yeah, it's great to see you. You stay on the left coast. I'll stay on the right coast. Everything will be good.
Yeah. Well, somewhere our paths will cross. God willing, my LA Kings will somehow get out of the basement and do something in the next couple of years. That would be nice,
I love coming out there. I'm up for any trip out to the West Coast.
Yeah. Well, I hope to see you soon, my friend. And thanks for everything. I will definitely tell all our listeners about your book. We'll point them to that. And anything you want to get out on social media, let me know. But thank you for being a great guest and a legend of sports photography on the Legends of Sport podcast.
Thanks a lot for having me, Andy.
Okay, BB. Take care, man. Wow, I could have gone on maybe 2.5, 3 more hours talking to Bruce right there. What a great guy and so much history. The fact that he's still doing it and bringing the passion and the love for hockey and photography every single night. I know he's anxious to get back on the rink, back out there where he belongs and where we all love to see him. So good luck with that, Bruce. I hope to see you someplace along the way. Maybe next season, my LA Kings will step it up, and who knows, we might see each other at another Stanley Cup run. Until then, folks, please, please, please follow Bruce's Instagram. It's at Bruce_Bennett. And his book, again, is called Hockey's Greatest Photos, the Bruce Bennett Collection, published by Hockey News. If you're a hockey fan or a sports fan or photography fan, you really should pick up this book. It's really the Bible of NHL hockey photography. Folks, keep following us at Legends of Sport on Instagram, our Twitter at Legends_of Sport, and our blog, legendsofsport.blog. My photography, of course, can be found at ADB Photo Inc. Keep following us. We're going to keep bringing these special legendary sports photographers podcasts and audio video casts to you. And we can't wait to the next one. I got some really great guests lined up. So stay tuned, folks. Until then, stay well, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.